Welcome back to Knowledge. We're here to kick off the 2025 college football season. Had some changes in the playoff, and it's going to be an exciting year. Some new contenders with some old familiar faces. And so to start things off right, before we really know too much about the season, we're going to get into just the scorching hot takes. What we think is going to happen with these teams, just bold predictions, and we're going to argue about it and just see where it goes by the end of the season, if any of them actually prove true, all right? So, without further ado, let's kick things off. My hot takes here, and we're going to start this one off red hot. The Georgia Bulldogs will miss the 2025 college football playoff. Now, how could this be? How could Kirby allow this to possibly happen to his team? Well, this new Georgia that we've seen last year, and I think will continue this year, is not the same Georgia of old. They are weak and inconsistent, more importantly, I would say. Inconsistent. And that this team, if it continues on the same path, and judging by what we saw last year and what talent returns, I think it will continue along a similar path. They could lose to like any half-decent team on a given basis, it felt like last year. Wasn't that true, right? I mean, be it Georgia Tech or Kentucky or
Kentucky about 1 point, bro.
I mean, come on.
Kentucky
was the only one that stood out, really.
What are your thoughts on Georgia?
I mean, I have been making the playoffs, let's be real. I do think they're going to rebound.
I think they
national title could be stretched.
Honestly, be better without Beck. That's my view, honestly. I was never really liked Carson Beck.
I mean, I like the new wide receivers they got in.
But it's not
unfeasible. Obviously, Noah Thomas is going to be a big addition for them.
But let's put it this way. It is not unfeasible to say that Georgia goes 9-3 and is right on the bubble at very least, yes?
But if it's a 9-3 Georgia, they're getting in the playoffs. A 9-3 Georgia is
and an 8-4 Georgia, not out of the question. I gotta start things off bold, and we gotta see what happens. All right, let's move on to your first hot take, James. What you got for us here?
My first hot take, starting it off here, is I'm gonna say there's gonna be 0 repeat conference champions this year, and the Big Power Four, of course. Mm-hmm. And that seems crazy, but when you think about it by each conference, it's pretty plausible. I mean, obviously the Big Ten, you have Ohio State. Is obviously, Oregon loses a lot, so they're gonna give a run for the money. SEC. Georgia winning. I mean, you obviously don't have them making the playoffs. I see any other SEC team is going to have a great shot at that championship this year. And then Big 12, everyone knows the Big 12 is anyone's game, so that's obviously an easy one.
ACC
I think
is your tough.
But come on
ACC
now, bro.
is the only
Clemson's
one.
heavy favorites.
But it's going to be a little
It
harder.
ain't close.
Clemson would be my closest pick, but I think it's still very possible when you look at the ACC. I mean, obviously last year, Clemson had a lot of struggles, and if they really make it better where they don't drop random games, and they're going to, but you look at what they've done in the past, and maybe they drop a couple to some decent teams, and I think other teams like Miami or Georgia Tech could possibly win it.
All right, what do you got for us here?
So last year, if you guys remember, I was extremely high on Oregon, which is right.
Bandwagon.
And this year,
bandwagon.
I'm jumping off the bandwagon. The bandwagon has crashed. I think they're going to be extremely mid this year. Is my first hot take.
Bandwagon.
Okay, the bandwagon has crashed. So my prediction is 8-4. What I saw from the spring game, I don't think Dante Marty, which is pretty mid. They have they don't Gabriel, they have elite talent, and they don't have the same wide receivers from last year either. They lose so much talent, and also the schedule. I mean, it's probably the same. Let's be real. They're going to lose to. I don't even know who they're going to lose to. I'm going to Penn State. That's a loss.
Penn State there.
USC, they're going to drop at Washington.
Even Michigan.
Washington has like a 20-game winning streak at home.
That's true.
At Washington, they're going to drop that, and they're going to drop at Iowa. In Kinnick, toughest environment.
That's right.
No, let's be real though. They're going to go 8-4 because inconsistent QB play.
Let's be honest. They probably missed what was their best shot at championship last year. You're not going to get the one.
Yeah, how do you rebound from that game?
They were just so completely unprepared on the biggest stage that it makes me doubt what they can do even in the postseason.
I mean, you could argue Dan Laney's kind of washed up after last year because he kind of tailed
He had one bad.
He kind of tailed off towards the end of last year.
But if they don't do anything this year, there's going to be some questions about, okay, is Oregon kind of reaching their limit of what they can do?
Yeah, what are they going to do when the money
runs
out too?
Exactly.
True. What happens when that Phil Knight money runs
out?
Bro,
Phil doesn't have much left.
He wants to see a championship, but I don't know. All right, so I'm going to move on to the Big 12 here. I got one hot take for each main conference and a group of 5. So coming off of one of their worst seasons in recent memory, I'm going to say Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State rebound this year and make the Big 12 title game. Now, seems crazy, I know, but with the Big 12, I wouldn't be surprised by a single thing that happened. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma State ended up last again.
You can really make any case.
I mean, to be honest.
12, as long as he's back.
But I really wouldn't be surprised with this at all. Mike Gundy, I mean, he's been there freaking forever, almost as long as Kirk Ferentz. That's when you're there almost as long as Ferentz, you know you've been around for a long freaking time. So, really, Oklahoma State has never had like 2 horrible years in a row under him, as far as I can remember. And so I think they rebound and somehow find a way into the Big 12 title game. And it's the freaking Big 12. They probably they can go like 8-4 and sneak in probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be my pick, but I would agree it's plausible just because at the end of the day, good teams win, and they're just one of the bigger programs in the Big 12, and they have way more history of winning than any of these programs where I could actually see them rebounding, as opposed to some smaller team where it'd be like the first time them making the Big 12 championship.
now, in early tests, is we're going to see what they're made of definitely at that Oregon game early on. If they just get run out of the stadium, then absolutely boat race, then we can see what kind of team they really are. And who knows, maybe that's still good enough to win the Big 12.
Honestly,
But, I won't hate on the Big 12 too much.
Big 12 is trash.
Yeah, I will hate on the
It's
Big
just
12. They are
Hollywood
trash. Yeah, who knows, anything can happen. All right, what do you got for us next, James?
My second hot take is that LSU has a very rough year and Brian Kelly ends up being fired. And I mean a rough year as in based off of their standards this year, where Garrett Nussmeier is, predicted to be a Heisman finalist and one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. And, they're obviously heavy playoff contenders. And I would say with their schedule, I see them going, probably like 7-5 or even worse, and Brian Kelly is going to be out.
Yeah, I mean, if they miss the playoff, I feel like he is definitely done.
Yeah, in general. But
For sure.
just looking at that schedule, I think they could lose to Florida,
Clemson,
Bama. They
at Ole Miss,
A&M, Ole Miss. I mean, they obviously are going to win some of these, but it's a very tough schedule. And I'm honestly not all that high on Garrett Nussmeier. I think obviously, he has talent, but I think he has a lot of issues he needs to iron out. And I could totally see, him not developing like people have predicted him to this year. So I think it's totally possible that they have a very letdown year here, and they're going to get rid of Kelly.
I mean, kind of like them, Penn State, Clemson, it's kind of do-or-die championship mode or bust, really. Not quite to the same extent as LSU as these two teams, I would say, but it's really like, if it's going to come together under Brian Kelly, it's got to be this year,
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. All right, moving
So
on.
my second hot take, some people might think this is a bit of a cold one, but I say both coaches of the trade from a couple years past, Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables, both get fired.
Freezing take, Sterling.
Okay, that's decently hot. That's a decently hot take. That's my coldest one I have.
With both,
So-
it's decently hot.
So I'm looking at OU
Agree with
6-6 last year. That's unacceptable. And then I'm looking at USC 5-7 missing a bowl. I mean, I think they have a tough schedule, and I'm gonna be honest, bro. They're just not good. They don't have a QB. They just don't have a QB. They don't have any talent. I mean, they lost Zach Branch. He was really the only talent on offense. And then OU, they're just gonna be bad, bro.
I mean,
OU
I don't care they got material. It doesn't matter, bro.
OU is the far more likely of
Yeah.
these two, definitely.
The schedule too. I mean, dropping Michigan early, dropping to Bama, bro, dropping to Texas. They're dropping left and right. They're dropping to South Carolina.
The Michigan game is
I
going
could
Tennessee.
see Riley Leonard here more than Venables, just because I look at USC lost more than they gained in the offseason. OU was the team that actually went out and made changes, especially.
Don't
with the
matter, bro.
offense.
Yeah, I mean,
6-6.
OU, I think if they lose, I'll clarify, if they get destroyed in that Michigan game early on, I could see him getting fired right then and there. Right there.
That'd be great.
I mean, if they just get destroyed.
Losers on
Why
the
would
hot
you
seat.
ever fire your coach that early?
Well, you could ask that to any of the many programs that have
'Cause
fired
he's been
their coaches
bad.
early if they're
At
He's
bad.
that
had
point,
2
is the interim head coach going to be any better? Like, at that
maybe,
point, you
honestly,
gotta
bro.
let him ride
So
out
hope
for the
they're
season.
just done for the season.
Can't get much worse, to be honest.
If they just see that they just absolutely suck. So let's move on for me for the ACC. This is kind of my least hot take, but I'm just going to go for it anyways. The Clemson Tigers win the 2025 national title.
That's pretty hot. Considering they haven't competed for a title for like 5 years.
They competed for a title last year. Technically,
They didn't compete
speaking,
for nothing.
They were
bro.
one of only
They were
12 teams
9-3.
that competed for a
They
national
lost to
title.
Louisville and South Carolina.
Despite you stealing me, the facts of
They
the
didn't
facts are
compete
they
for nothing,
competed
bro.
in the playoff last year.
Indiana competed for a title last year.
Hey, they weren't Indiana. So, look, of the two teams that I would say are like really trying to load up for a championship run this year, returning everything and really like just trying to go for championship, Penn State and Clemson, who do you trust more? Dabo Sweeney or James Franklin? I mean, come on.
No, those are the teams. The teams are Texas.
I'm saying of the teams
Let's
that
be real.
are loaded with talent.
But Clemson
and are
has sneaking
reloaded
in
for
there.
championships.
I will
So,
say,
easy path, incredibly easy path to coast to probably a top 3 seed, you would think. And from there, let's see what the Klubnik can do with contenders. Even though they lost the game, I'll admit I was really impressed with Cade Klubnik, especially in Clemson, fighting in the Texas game. That was the game that actually, even though they were losing, convinced me that this team can contend for a title.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say title, but I do really agree. Cade Klubnik is probably one of the few quarterbacks I'm high on. I think he's probably going to be totally like top 3 at a minimum in my eyes, just based off what I've seen. But I also think, obviously, like y'all have said, they've returned a lot. They have all that talent on the D line and such, where this is kind of their year, given this weak ACC. As long as they don't drop dumb games like they did last year, I think they lose to South Carolina. But in the ACC,
But the ACC doesn't
there
matter.
is no
It
reason
doesn't matter
they
at all.
should really
LSU doesn't
lose
matter.
to half of these other teams. So
Yeah.
I mean, they don't play a single even mid-ACC team because ACC is just a joke.
ACC's trash. All right, what we got next?
my next one, speaking of, is the other quarterback I'm high on this year. And my hot take is that John Mateer is going to be a Heisman finalist.
We're serious,
at
bro.
least. I actually watched some of his games last year, and I really liked what I saw even before he transferred to Oklahoma. And now that he's going to a bigger program and has some new wide receiver talent around him as well, I'm really excited to see if he steps up to the SEC competition level. And I think he has the talent to be one of those all-purpose quarterbacks. I mean, he obviously is he's got a total cannon, can run some air raid, but he's got some. He can run.
Audible hot take. He gets
So-
benched week 2 from Michael Hawkins Jr. after he throws 4 picks against Michigan.
So I think
We
John
got
Mateer.
That's
Venables
what that
fired
tough
and
defense.
Heisman finalists.
that
on
tough
either side.
defense, they're gonna
All
rattle
the
him.
Oklahoma predictions here.
It's like I can see where he comes from with Venables after last year, but Oklahoma's shown some shine, obviously stuff like beating Bama, but that's where I think they can really improve with these new acquisitions. It's just, does John Mateer step up, because he has the talent. It's just whether or not he can stay elevated, actually having to play better teams now, and if
Not
they
playing
can't-
plumbers and
'Cause you look-
firemen
no,
week in, week
yeah.
out.
That's
You look
the
at
thing,
you
that's
look
the
at Cam
question.
Ward from Incarnate Word. Would anyone have ever guessed he would have been able to play this high? No.
As much as it works
Sometimes
out,
people
Cam Ward
love to
is
say they didn't
nonchalant.
play
though.
anyone.
He's nonchalant.
I know people love to say that these quarterbacks came from lower. They didn't play anyone, but sometimes they step up, and those talents that were shown there, it's still there. So I think John Mateer has a very high chance of being one of those cases.
So another player that's kind of similar to this. So Julian Sane, I think he sneaks into a Heisman finalist. So if you guys remember from last year, I actually said they should have started him last year. Maybe he wasn't quite ready, but he's ready now. If you watch the spring game, he was dropping dimes left to right.
So-
Even if he's mid,
Let's
the
have the
cast he
question.
has around him
Yeah.
will carry him to
So
insane
let's have the
stats.
question: is this the legitimate, he's an amazing quarterback, he's gonna bring his team, or is this just gonna be the
He is
we don't know who to pick for the Heisman, let's just pick this good, decent quarterback on an elite team?
he is the
instead?
Dylan Gabriel of this year.
The Dylan
He's,
Okay,
he's
so
a
that's-
mid QB,
okay.
but he's on an elite team and he has great surrounding cast, so he has good stats.
Okay.
I can agree with that. Where
He's
yes,
still really good,
He could
though.
be a finalist
Really
like that,
good.
but you look at it and it's like at the end of the day, the Heisman is going to be the guy that elevates a worse team and is the reason they're doing better, not the guy that benefits from.
He's
everything
gonna make.
around
He might
him.
not win, but he's gonna make.
All right.
I
He's
can
Dylan
at least
Gabriel.
see that.
All right. I can see it. Now let's move on to the Big Ten here. I'm gonna go with. Now this is a pretty bold one. Can't say I believe in it too much, but I gotta go with it and stand my ground. USC rebounds again and makes the playoff, and I gotta go even further because it's not quite hot enough, I would say. Makes the Big Ten title So
That's
top
real
two
stupid,
in
bro.
the Big Ten.
Yes, once again, two
Complete
sides.
real
Lincoln
bad.
Riley
So-
fired.
I can't even
making
make a
the
bowl.
playoffs.
So
yeah.
we got, let's see, the positive momentum after that A&M victory in the bowl game. And really, to be honest, I think the key about this USC team is Lincoln Riley doesn't seem like he can coach morale too well. Just don't make them give up on the season.
Oh, we can't risk it.
So, like, USC last year, we look at what they did, beat LSU, really hung with a lot of really good teams. Should have beaten Penn State, really.
Snag Texas.
They were
Should have
better
won.
than the record.
Should have won actually really a lot of their games, and Lincoln Riley found a way to lose in the last minute. They were clearly a much better team than their record at the very least. And if they play up to the level of their potential, I could easily see them going 10-2, something like that. That wouldn't be out of question at all.
Let's be real.
And get right into the playoff with that.
I mean, they don't have a QB, bro. Like,
It's
who got in there?
They play Notre Dame.
yeah.
I can trust Lincoln Riley on QB situations if nothing else. If nothing else.
I don't know. Like, he's kind of fallen off QB. Like, Miller
He's
Moss
fallen
was
off
huge.
from
Miller
like
Moss
absolutely the
lost
best in
in a
college
bowl game.
football.
I mean,
like-
Miller was just
Like, he about tried to throw it away himself before A&M did it
I
back.
don't know, bro.
Yeah, but probably my most risky take. But I gotta go down the edge somehow, you know. Gotta go on the edge. All right, what you got here?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and take a team that many people are having as possible national title favorites, and I'm gonna say Penn State loses in the first round of the playoffs.
Ooh.
And that's really, you just look at it. I wanted to say so bad for my hot take, Penn State misses the playoffs, but given their schedule, that's just not gonna happen.
They'll beat the team.
They will
They're beating Oregon, bro.
They're gonna lose
we're
to
snagging
every
Oregon
good
this
team
year.
they play. Ohio State. And
We're beating
I would
Oregon.
like Oregon.
Or Penn State's
And
beating
then
Oregon.
they will make the playoffs. And who knows? If they get lucky and get draws like last year, then maybe. But if they have to play a single good team, I see them getting bounced in the first round.
If they play a team they're not favored against.
They'll be favored. They'll be favored against Oregon right at home.
They have never
will
once
be favored
shown
against Oregon, yeah.
that they can beat these good teams. So why should I ever pick them?
Because
to go
we used to
far?
say that about Michigan, and we
Notre
say
Dame.
that about Ohio State in the playoffs.
Notre
Well, they ain't
Dame.
even Notre Dame. They've
Until
all
they
done
did.
that.
And this is their year.
This is their
theoretically.
year. The
Theoretically.
last two
Notre
champs,
Dame.
Michigan, Ohio State. We used to say that about them.
So how
Until they
many
did it.
more national championship appearances did Ohio State and Notre Dame have in the past?
But
years
Michigan,
since Penn State?
though. Michigan, they hadn't made a title in
Michigan
25
still
years.
Notre Dame.
Way
Michigan had
bigger
never
than
won a
that.
big game. They
Yeah,
was
I
in the same boat as Penn
just-
State.
and also even
no,
Drew
you really
Allen,
look it up. They had
I
never
don't
won a
even
big
think-
game.
I don't even think Drew Allen.
I think
is
Drew
all
Allen's
that
that good.
of a
He
quarterback.
was not very good in the
The
playoffs.
Notre Dame
I'll tell you
game
that. It
obviously
sucked.
was the one that
It's fine,
people
bro.
were hating.
JJ
on
played
it for,
horrible against TCU the year before. He had two big sixes.
Yeah.
I just
He rebounded the year for that.
This is their year. I mean, to be sure, if they're ever going to do
They're
it, it's going to be
set
this
up
year.
for
I mean,
it,
we
but-
say that every year with Penn State, so it'll probably next year. Will probably be this
But
is their
we
year.
said that
same-
about
it's
Michigan.
the
We
same
said that
thing
about
every
Ohio
time.
State.
Yeah,
It's the cycle, bro, of Big Ten East teams.
I'm cautiously optimistic on Penn State this year.
And what wide receivers did they get that were actually good?
It don't matter, bro.
What wide receivers?
You don't
did they
need
get
wide
that were
receivers.
good?
Defense wins
They don't
championships.
You don't
need
need wide
wide
receivers. You don't need wide receivers.
You don't need
Right
wide
now.
receivers,
You don't
bro.
need wide receivers in football.
It's irrelevant.
All right, now let's see what you got next
Alright,
here.
this is a mid one. I think Florida to sneak into the playoff for 9-3.
Homer take.
That's not ridiculous to say that.
They should.
It's
If
not
they go
ridiculous.
nine,
It's not ridiculous to say that.
if they go 9-3 with like some
They're top
elite
team
wins,
right now.
if they with elite wins, they'll probably be in.
So they shocked the world when they beat Georgia. Or beat Georgia last year if DJ didn't get hurt. Texas, let's say they drop LSU, Texas, A&M. I mean, A&M and A&M's not a very good team, but out on the road is tough. LSU, that's obviously pretty hard. And then let's say they drop Texas. That's going to be a close game. 9-3, they can easily get in. Like, wins at Ole Miss,
They got
Tennessee,
that SEC
Miami.
bias going for them.
Yeah,
so
they got that
they'll
bias,
probably go in.
DJ's going to take
Yeah.
over. We got one of the top O-lines, top 5 O-lines.
I'm big on Lagway, so I can kind of agree. And also, they're benefited by, they could drop games to, like, say, Miami or other non-con ones, and it wouldn't hurt them in the SEC. So I would once again say, they went toe-to-toe with teams like Georgia last year, and having a full year of Lagway is going to be a lot better for them.
This is a good
So
prediction.
if they, they could easily
some
drop
possibility here.
the Texas A&M, and LSU game, and they'd be
And
fine.
still sneak into the 12th seed.
So, I honestly,
Sneak in.
I can totally agree with this one. This
Yeah.
is borderline one of my takes as well.
All right. Last but not least, let's end things off with a group of 5 here. What I'm going on with, and go over to, speaking of Florida, Dan Mullen and leads UNLV to the Group of 5 spot in the college football playoff this year.
Alright, so we're just talking about Group 5 nowadays.
We are. We've gotten to that.
I mean, they were about one game away last year.
They were right there, and I really think they can do it. Boise is going to be just. Boise, I think, could be even in a Kenneth Walker, Michigan State situation where they realize, we had this one guy as our entire team.
Mountain
What are
West
we going
just
to do
all
now?
covers. Come on now.
So they should be out of much more out of the picture.
You think about it, and Boise State was the favorite, like pretty early
And
from
UNLV
the
was
beginning
still
of the
pretty
year
freaking
to make the
close to getting
playoffs
there.
as the Group of 5 team, and they did. And UNLV is obviously one of the top teams. And who else is contending in Group 5 that is like heavily favored to make the playoffs as that last team?
Probably
right now?
Boise sneaking in.
Boise again.
Returning
I would
QB.
agree with y'all. Where I
Boise.
think after losing
Boise again,
Johnson
but I
and
think-
some other members, they're not
I
going to
think
fight.
Genty was the whole team, really. At least the overwhelming majority of it. And I think they just. I think Dan Mullen, I think, is a much better coach than maybe people gave him credit for. I think he shouldn't have been fired from Florida. I think Florida should realize that now.
Nah, it's alright, bro. Billy's on the
They got
uprise.
Sunbelt Billy.
Billy's
We'll
on
see.
the uprise.
He'll see.
We
This
start-
year's
this
looking
The
Billy
Billy
decent.
that left Graham Mertz for half the
He
year.
started from the bottom.
This year's looking
now he's here,
decent,
though.
but we'll see. But no, I think UNLV could be a lot of fun to watch this year, honestly.
Ain't nobody
see what they
watching
do.
UNLV.
Yeah, nah.
People who like football will watch them, so we'll see. All right, last.
My last hot take, I figured I should do an ACC one. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech making the ACC championship at the least.
Solid.
And it's,
Yeah.
I mean, this
Not
guy
that
doesn't
hard,
think
really.
they're good, but you look at what they did last year. Obviously, the one that stands out, the Georgia game, you know. But I think Haynes King is a dog. That team has a lot of fight in them, and their schedule is much more meaningful. I mean, much more manageable this year. You know, they obviously have tough non-cons with Colorado and Georgia, but those don't have to hurt them in the ACC. So their only hard game in the ACC is Clemson, and they could drop that and then probably rematch
them again
in the ACC
Bro.
championship. But outside of that, there's not really any teams that I think are better than Georgia Tech that on their schedule. And I think they're going to improve this year as well, anyways, like they did from last year, where they were obviously shown some potential last year, and they improved on it this year. And I think they're going to continue to improve and actually have that championship appearance.
It's a solid pick. I like it. All right, last
So
one.
my last, you guys show a little love to the Big 12. Can't forget them. So I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12 over K-State. So if you remember last year, K-State was my Big 12 champ.
Freezing cold.
No.
Freezing
Just
cold.
let me answer
Texas
it.
Tech winning
That's
the Big 12.
that's decently hot, bro. They haven't been there for a minute. They've never even made a Big 12 title. So all that oil money, bro, it's gonna get them on the uprise. They got transfers coming in. David Billin from Stanford. He's one of the top edges. And so part of this hot take is that like you got everyone like these people. They're saying like, bro, Big 12. There's gonna be so much parity, bro. You can pick anyone. I think it is gonna be one of the most chalk conferences. It's just gonna be all the top teams. Because like whenever you have all these like average people that are just saying the same thing,
Oh, these common.
it doesn't happen, bro.
Yeah,
It's the opposite of it.
even though it happened last year in the Big 12.
No, bro. No. Everyone thought the Big 12 would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
normal last year, and then Arizona State won, and now everyone thinks it's gonna be crazy. And
What
it's
was
gonna be
your
normal.
Big 12 team
Yeah.
last year?
K-State, that wasn't. It's not ridiculous. To say that.
In Colorado, too.
All right.
Colorado was close.
That'll do it for this episode of Hot Takes, and we'll see you soon with our next episode. Oh wait, one more final hot take. Iowa Hawkeyes win the national championship.
So-
No explanation needed.
We need
The
to
end.
cut that out of the video.